Right, hi guys, Luton here, and we're back with Below the Line. Now, if you don't remember Below the Line, it was a series I started a couple of months ago, and I kind of lost track of it in between being very busy and just other things happening. So I wanted to get back on track with it. So what happens with Below the Line, I select your comments. I select comments from the videos that I think are, particularly relevant or challenging or interesting to talk about, and we throw them into this and I answer your questions or queries, or I just discuss around a point. So let's get straight into it. I've selected from a couple of different videos, and there's never really a good rule about sort of what they have to be in order for me to choose. It's just something that's interesting. So I went through quite a lot of videos tonight, and I just kind of picked some things across maybe 4 or 5 videos that I've been talking about lately. So DOW3 says, from my video talking about The Division, he says it can be hard to avoid sounding like you're saying the joy of saying I told you so, because in that video I was very critical about Division and saying, it was obvious that it was going to turn out this way. But he says, I think you did a great job of saying exactly that, but with the emphasis on the more critical buyer-publisher consequence of making people more risk-averse in the future when they do their cost-benefit analysis on whether to take a chance on a new game. Basically what he's saying is, trying to determine whether or not you want to buy something. Personally, I think every AAA hype train wreck indirectly serves to steer money towards all the indie early access efforts. Unbelievably, that is exactly what I was thinking about today, just randomly. I was just thinking about how I seem to be I kind of falling in love more and more with indie games lately, because there's no bullshit with indie games. They are just, innovative, beautifully created, and a lot of passion there, and you don't often feel that with so many of these big games, and I think you would if they spoke about them more honestly and they didn't ram hype marketing bullshit down your throat all the time. Anyway, and he says yes, many of those are also failures that reach like Icarus for the Sun, and consequently then drive money back to the generally safer if blander AAA titles, but at a relatively individual cost. You might be paying something like $5-20 for usually tens of thousands of dollars cost for the total game, instead of a AAA $50 to $90 depending on add-ons and season passes, and then looking at tens of millions in total to produce that. The independent game route promotes a more diverse game design portfolio and player experience by the numbers. 3 smaller, potentially more diversified risks across different game styles and genres, rather than one big roll of the dice for the individual buyer. On the publisher side, one AAA title's budget could fund 50 to 100, I would say even more than that, indie games beyond their wildest dreams. All the better if the money goes directly from the backers to the developers with a minimum of middleman overhead. He says you did a nice job of balancing what the game did right against a very specific and well-explained thoughts on what you felt the game got wrong. Huge bonus points for impatiently rattling off a casual list of great post-apocalyptic literature. I forgot I did that. Games and films, especially Children of Men and Last of Us. Yeah, that's very good. I kind of feel like we're heading for Children of Men at the moment with the Zika virus in Brazil. Is anybody else like me feel like we're going to be looking back to this Olympics and being like, hey, maybe we should have not done that, when suddenly we find that everybody gets Zika and we're having all birth defects all around the world? I don't know. Anyway, off topic. He says, I found your channel through Armour 3 and Ahoy, but I appreciate your depth and other content as well. Thank you very much, DOW3. But I think he's right. I think that we are starting to see a pushback against these kind of large-scale games. Now, I don't think we're going to see a big change in AAA development and the way it's produced and marketed. I don't even think, because I don't think buyers are savvy enough to actually sort of make a big stand and step away from it. I think that's a bit insulting, but hey, that's just what I think. I don't think people are I don't think they're smart enough to actually put their money where their mouth is and say, hey, I'm not going to get this game. People are just going to get it. You can't help it. That's the whole thing with marketing and advertising. It gets you to buy things that you don't maybe really want. You just kind of can't help yourself. And I think that's a really big issue, and it's something that's not going to go away, because when they have the money to throw behind these things, it doesn't even matter if it's a real failure or not. I mean, look at Battlefield Hardline. I mean, that game tanked hard in the numbers, right? Console, it did better overall, but that's because there wasn't a lot of other games around at the time, and so people were kind of just playing it. But that game was really considered a success in terms of its units sold, but it wasn't really a success in terms of longevity. And this is where I really, really do come down on this absolute frustration that I have about kind of season passes and kind of hyping and pre-selling a game. You know, the hype train is so massive around AAA titles. Just look at Battlefield 1 right now. Nothing is stopping that game. You know, that game is going to make bank, right? And you know, regardless of like how it actually plays out, and it's super frustrating, you know, because it seems like you get in this cycle. But I mean, a good analogy would be the kind of blockbuster movies. Okay, look at things like some of the superhero films that have come out and have been generally panned really hard, and it's like, people are starting to get worn down. People are starting to get fed up. People are tired. They're exhausted. They're exhausted from these explosion punch fests in terms of the movies, because these huge movies which cost, you know, so much money to produce, and they're so grandiose, but in the scheme of things, they're actually pretty dull, because you get kind of tediously worn out, because they don't innovate. They don't treat the audience with any respect for their intelligence, you know. And I feel like some of the big AAA games start to kind of get that way as well. You know, I really feel like if you look at indie games and look at the sort of often the thought process there and the logic involved, these big games just don't do it for me. These big games I get bored of very quickly, whereas indie games keep me coming back and back and back and back, and I want to play more and more and more, because they're so much better, you know, they're more well thought out. I mean, I look at RimWorld. You know, I played RimWorld so much, that game, and it's, you know, I mean, how big is that game on the system? It's like 300 megabytes or something. It's ridiculous. RimWorld is like 300, 400 megabytes on the system, and yet it's given me, I would say, 10, 20, 30 times the gameplay that I gave to The Division, you know, which is crazy. And the value for money there is insane as well. That's not to say that I don't play big games. Of course I do. Like, you know, I'm playing Armour all the time, and I will play Battlefield when it comes along as well, of course. But in the scheme of things, when I look at it, I really don't play a great many big AAA games for a significant length of time. You will play it somewhat, but it's the indie games I come back to again and again, you know, it really is. And I think that that's something that I hope we will start to see. And then hopefully what will happen then is that if the big developers start to lose numbers, if they start to lose numbers on their games in terms of sales, they will have to look at, well, what is happening here and how can we address that? And that's when they'll hopefully start to come back to some of the ideals in terms of, you know, thinking outside the box more, being more, you know, innovative and creating stronger narratives in the games there, and the mechanics, focusing on the mechanics. And that's something that I've spoken about a lot, you know, is why, you know, same as with like Dawn of War, you know, people are getting so het up about the graphics, and it's, you know, people need to think more about the mechanics and what's happening right there. And actually that brings us nicely into our next point. So Adam Strong is talking about Dawn of War 3, and he says, my complaint isn't the colours or textures, it's the animations. The Marines bounce like they're made of jello. When they walk, it's over-accentuated to the point it just looks childish. Just my 2 cents. And then it also goes into our next comment, also related to Dawn of War 3, which is Chad Calvert says, I don't think it's so much the models as it is the bland, featureless terrain. I like how I'm talking about that whilst in the background there's like lava and fire and tons of shade and shape and kind of features. Now that I think of it, one of my biggest issues is the damned cover bubbles. I mean, what was wrong with Dawn of War's 2 cover system? Nothing, but they're just different games. Another thing that really grinds my gears are the animations that make Space Marines and Terminators look like gymnasts instead of crazy homicidal space monks. Are they homicidal? I suppose they are. Wearing a shitload of armour. Sure, the Eldar are elegant and fast in melee, but Space Marines are relatively slow and cumbersome, preferring the quick and pragmatic boot-to-skull method over needlessly flashy martial arts. Plus they're wearing power armour, so there's that. Also, the Imperial Knights' huge cannons are like pea shooters. I could go on, but I'm choosing not to. Oh, I wish you had gone on, dude. But yeah, pea shooters, they kind of, if you actually watch the gameplay, slaughter pretty much anything in their sights, so I'm not really sure. People seem to be, okay, so here's the thing with Dawn of War, and it's kind of funny, right, because it reminds me of actually a lot of different games. It's a very kind of classic thing. The reason I'm kind of, it's weird, like, I really love the look and just everything. I'm really enjoying Dawn of War 3. And it's funny, I've been through this so many times. It's like, if I hate on a game, people are like, oh, Luton, you're always so negative, you're always so miserable. If I love a game, people are like, oh my god, how much did you get paid to do this? Like, fuck's sake. Like, look, I've said this so many times, right? If you're not on board with me as a producer, if you don't trust me as a producer, you shouldn't be watching my videos, you shouldn't subscribe to me. Because if you don't believe what I'm saying, if you don't think that I'm being honest and truthful in the things that I say about games, then there's literally no purpose to you watching my videos. You should go and watch another producer whose opinion you value more than mine, right? So look, here's the thing. If I have made comparisons and shown the differences between like Dawn of War 3 and 2 and 1. Look, Dawn of War 1 was a much sort of grander scale game in terms of like the amount of units you could have down there, right? And Dawn of War 2 focused in much more closely. Dawn of War 3 looks like it's coming somewhere in the middle. And I still, like, look at this right now with the knight. Okay, look at the knight here, the back of the knight and all the kind of metallic tone and shade. I'm just not seeing it in terms of the visuals that people are talking about. But hey, look, let's talk about the animations, okay? And you can see the guys in that little shield bubble right here. We'll talk about that. But the animations, I mean, I can get what people are saying about the Eldar and sort of skitting around a little bit. The Space Marines, yes. I mean, yeah, they are a little bit over the top or whatever, but I honestly think that what they're going for here is, I think that, and again, look at, yeah, the pea shooter, he's just absolutely slaughtering everybody in there, like, when you're talking about, like, the movement of the Space Marines and how they're kind of bump, it's kind of like, there you are, look, there they go, and I feel like, so let's look at them running here. See, yeah, they are bobbing around, but I don't feel like it's so over the top. It's not so over the top that it bothers me. Like, if I was playing this right now, I'd be thinking, like, right, go get my guys here in that bubble, and Eldar here. Okay, I'm going to move Solari up, get those assault troops in there. I'm honestly, whilst you're playing, I'm not thinking, like, man, that run is really pissing me off. Like, I don't see that, and I don't care about that, because I'm more concerned about the actual what I'm doing in the game, and those little things just don't bother me. But I mean, I've said this before, like, visuals are not a gigantic thing for me, so again, maybe it's something that everyone is very, very concerned about but just doesn't bother me. I mean, that's entirely possible. One thing I will say I don't agree about is, like, you see those Terminators right there down the bottom left? See how fast they were running a minute ago? I do agree with that. It's the one thing I do agree about, is that the Terminators move way, way too fast. The Terminators are, it's called tactical dreadnought armor for a reason. Look at the dreadnought here. See, but even then, look, see how that dreadnought speeds up? I don't like that either. I don't like it when the sort of heavy units sort of speed up. That's the thing with Solaria. See, Solaria can't do that. She has to move slowly, right? She can't speed up suddenly. She has to move sort of steadily. Now, yeah, of course, when they're speeding up like that, it's because they're getting a little buff or whatever. And, you know, maybe they get like a power surge or something like that, like the dreadnought. I can understand it a bit more with the dreadnought than the actual Terminators themselves. But yeah, that's the one thing I don't agree about. The Space Marines, you can see the guys like jogging on here, and it's like, I'm fine with the Space Marines, but the Terminators not so much. And Gabriel Angelos, again, I'm happy to suspend my disbelief about him. You know, he's a larger-than-life character. You want him to stand out on the battlefield, so I'm fine with that. I'm fine with Gabriel Angelos. And again, it's just kind of personal preference at the end of the day. But the other thing that I will say is that, look, here's the thing. Whenever something new comes out, people are ready to hate on it. Okay, always. And I hate using the term hate because whenever people say, like, oh, you're just hating, that's such an easy answer. That's such a dismissive answer to just say, like, oh man, you're just hating, blah 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 blah. You know, it's true, but that is what people do. You know, they're waiting to hate. You know, and the thing is, when Dawn of War 2 came along, and this is the thing as well, I'm just going to say it, all right, gamers are unbearably fickle, all right? I'm just saying it because it's absolutely true, and if you disagree, you're talking out your ass. Okay, gamers are fickle. Gamers forget literally from one moment to the next. And actually, in fact, online culture does, all right? Things move on. People forget, all right? That's why bullshit YouTubers who can kind of scam people suddenly get away with it, because things move on and people's attention span is not as big, and so they forget about it, they let it go, and it moves on, right? Well, here's the thing, that's exactly what's going to happen with Dawn of War, because that's exactly what happened with Dawn of War 1 and 2. Okay, when Dawn of War 2 came along, it was very different to Dawn of War 1, and at the same, people were out, oh, this isn't the right game, this isn't Dawn of War, because it's so different, and that's exactly what's going to happen with Dawn of War 3. You're going to have this whole period now where people are throwing their toys out the pram and going, this is rubbish, I hate it, I'm never going to buy it. You're going to buy it. every time when games come out and everybody's so outraged, oh, I'm not going to get this game, or it looks terrible, no, you're going to get it, man. And you're not going to care about any of that stuff when you're actually playing the game and having a lot of fun, because honestly, that's what I think. But I mean, the same with like The Division. That's like an upside down, it's the other way around. That was a game which I thought that I was going to enjoy, and that was a game which I actually played and did enjoy. I played the beta and I had a really, really good time with The Division, but then when it actually came to getting into the game itself, there were a lot of elements, including, a lot of mechanical elements, which really strongly let that game down for me. And it had nothing to do with the visuals. And that's why I say people should be far more concerned when it comes to Dawn of War 3 with ensuring that those mechanics and the way in which the game plays is correct, because that's the thing that keeps you playing the game. And look, we can discuss and debate about how a Space Marine should move and how a Space Marine should look and how fast a Terminator should run and whether, Gabriel Angelos can jump in the air and all that stuff. But ultimately, okay, you cannot deny that all of that stuff is absolutely irrelevant to whether or not how long you're going to be playing that game for, because what it comes down to is the mechanics of the game. It comes down to what is it that keeps coming back, what keeps bringing you back to it, okay, and that is how solid the gameplay is, and that means ensuring that there's a balance between units, ensuring that the base building is intuitive, natural, and works in terms of pacing for the game, making sure that you can appropriately make the strong pushes that you need to, dealing with different points. And again, let me just come back to something about those cover bubbles. So people are saying like, well, why can't we use the cover system in Dawn of War 2? Because Dawn of War 2 was a different game. Dawn of War 2 was focused on small squad play, not the kind of slightly larger base building-y sort of focus that we seem to be going to be having with Dawn of War 3. And so it kind of does make sense to maybe have those features in there, but again, it's one of those things where I'm happy to be sort of sitting on the fence with. I don't dislike the look of those cover bubbles. I think that you can smash them, you can break them, you can capture them, you can use them, it's fine. But again, they're probably wanting to just create a style of gameplay, and maybe they have tried out using that other cover system and they just found it didn't work, it was too clunky. You got to think about it this way, right? In Dawn of War 2, because you were playing on smaller maps with smaller quantities of units, those smaller objects, like walls and little barricades and things, were so much more critically important, right? Because each little position on the battlefield had great importance. If you're playing on a larger battlefield, you're not worrying about that stuff so much. What you're worrying about is moving your units to a place, engaging, clearing that, having that battle, and then moving on. And all of those little bits and pieces, that kind of micromanagement, becomes less important. And I think that's what it is that people need to try and remember, okay? You can look at this gameplay, and then you can make your own speculations and your own kind of interpretations of it, and that's fine. That's what I do as well. That's what we all do. But I really think that when it comes to these kind of specific elements, it's something that you can give your opinion on, but then say, well, this is what I think, but let's wait until we see some gameplay, or let's wait until I actually get hands-on with it, and then maybe we'll have some more information. Maybe then it will give us a better grounding to that opinion. Are we right? Are we wrong? Or do we not know? That's where you need to kind of come down on it. But as I say, I would very much imagine that they have gone through the process of debating, discussing, testing, like, okay, look, we had this in Dawn of War 2 and we didn't in Dawn of War 1. Which one works better for the kind of game that we're kind of trying to create? You can't imagine that they have not had that conversation. And at the end of the day, they're making the game. They have made the previous games. People love the previous games. So I would like to trust the developer to know that after all this time, they kind of know what they're doing. Okay, and then the last comment today is from eBunny, and I was actually looking back at my Riven videos today because I was thinking about, if you don't know what Riven is, you need to go just check it out. I've got a playlist on my front of my homepage for YouTube. Just go down to the bottom and you can find my Riven playlist. You should check that game out. But Riven is a game which came out a really long time ago, and Cyan are bringing out a new game soon called Abduction, and that's Obduction, not Abduction, and it looks really fantastic. I can't wait to play it. I'm really excited for it. But whilst I was looking back through the comments, one of the ones that I found right at the very far back of my Riven playthrough was from eBunny, and he was saying, I've just come over and found your channel, and I was like, oh, that's fantastic. It's great to see when someone's been like a really long time subscriber for like 2 years or more. And anyway, so this is his comment from my 100,000 subscribers video, and I wanted to include one comment from my 100,000 subs video because it's such a big milestone for me, you know. So he says, congratulations Luton, I think you very much deserve it. And I like what you decided to do for this video. Not only is it something nice and different both from most of your content, but also from what a lot of other content creators would do. I also just thought it was a nice video in and of itself. I like the historical aspect of it as well as just the beautiful scenery. I think going to places like this now and then can be pretty valuable. It can put things in perspective. I think that's very true. The thing with your channel is, if you'd wanted to, I think you could have reached this point a long time ago, possibly even with a lot less effort. If you'd just done what a lot of other people do and had prioritized views and subs over everything else, you could have probably been a lot more popular, but that's not what you've done, because I don't think that's what's been your goal or philosophy with the channel, and that's something I really appreciate. Keep up the great work, man. Yeah, he's actually 100% right. I really had an idea and a focus always with my YouTube channel, and again, this is why I always say, you know, like, if you don't trust me and you don't believe what I say, then you probably should just not watch me. Because the thing is, for one thing, I never really had any great aspirations about being a full-time YouTube producer. Now, that has changed as it's gone along, and I would never allow it to, and despite people say, oh no, I've had this conversation before, but I really would not allow it to compromise me, okay? And I've had discussions before about whether I think sponsored things are right or wrong, and you know, I've explained that before. I actually think in some circumstances sponsorship is absolutely fine, in other circumstances it is absolutely not fine. I think it's fine if you're putting out something to do with a product or a game which you already have like a belief that it's really good. So say a game which you already like, for example, okay, Sonic Mania. Cannot wait to play Sonic Mania. That game looks absolutely fantastic. It is everything that I love. You know, I always loved Sonic 2. Sonic Mania looks absolutely fantastic. Now if Sega came to me and said, hey Luton, we'd like you to produce a couple of videos about Sonic Mania, and you know, that would be a sponsored video, I'd be like, yes please, let's just crack on with that straight away, because it's something that I already love. If, however, some company came to me and said, hey, we've got this obscure JRPG, and which is actually what happened in the last week. I had an email from this obscure, you know, company about some JRPG game, and they were like, hey, we'd like you to do a sponsored video about this game. I just deleted it, because I was like, you know, I was like, that's something that I would not want to play, and it's something I have no knowledge about. So for me to kind of just crack something out there about that, it would be very disingenuous, and I honestly wouldn't feel comfortable doing that. But say, for example, Elgato is another good example of a sponsored thing. Now look, Elgato sponsored me by giving me an HD60 Pro for me to record on my PC. But here's the thing, I was using Elgato right from the very beginning of my YouTube channel, and I strongly believe in telling people about quality products, because you know, if you don't tell people about a certain product and you don't help that company to grow and so on and so on, then the quality thing that you wanted never sort of maybe gets to where it needs to be. Now Elgato obviously are doing very well at this point, but you know, for a long time they didn't really, it took them a while to branch out into gaming stuff. And when I very first started gaming, I wasn't using an Elgato, I was using the Hapag whatever it was, PVR, the HD PVR, and there was no, for what I needed, there was no way of kind of actually recording that off the software, because I had a Mac, not a PC, and so I had to use a piece of software called the Elgato iTV, and that enabled me to record. And the Elgato iTV was really like precursor to the Elgato game capture and the HD60, because that software was basically the same software, but they just kind of took it and then put it into its own software to go along with the Elgato game capture. So anyway, the point that I'm making is that you know, if it's something that you believe in already, then I feel like it's fine to do sponsor stuff. The other thing with my channel is that I haven't tried to focus very, very strongly on just getting, like, I don't want to say clickbait, because I don't think some people's content is clickbait, but I would say sort of, what would be the word? Kind of like playing the game of YouTube, you know, where basically what you're doing is identifying things that you know are going to guarantee you to get views. Instead of that, I've been focusing more on just the things that I want to make and the things that I want to talk about, and not really worrying too much about how well it did. And that really did, you know, handicap my channel growth. And I kind of knew it, but at the same time, I couldn't bring myself to make that other kind of content. And I think everybody knows the kind of content I'm talking about. I'm talking about, like, you know, best this, best that, what else would it be? Sort of like, you know, just kind of oversimplifying things down, or the kind of videos where it says things like, what would it be? Something revealed, new info, news, this, that, or, you know, or making a question into a statement. That's something that fucking pisses me off. When people basically they put something in a title, but it should have a question mark, but they don't put a question mark. So something like it doesn't really matter what it would be. Let's just say Battlefield 1. Okay, so the beta, I saw some videos about the beta stuff today. Battlefield 1 beta details. And then that video actually ends up being them just saying, like, so, you know, we're hopefully going to find out the details at Gamescom, and we should know more about the beta then. But in the meantime, what do you think about? And you think, whoa, hang on a minute. Where was the fucking information that it said in the title? Because it should say Battlefield 1 beta info. But what it turns out to be is them asking the question, are we going to find out about the beta info at Battlefield 1? Misleading, okay? And that's the kind of thing that pisses me off. But making those kind of videos brings in the views, and it's astonishing the amount of people who don't spot that those videos are terribly misleading, you know. And it's fucking annoying. But again, I've always tried to steer away from doing those, and if I do those videos, I usually do it in a sarcastic way. And again, not many people often pick up on that. A lot of the videos that I've done in the past where I've tried to focus more on the kind of stupidity of YouTube and the silliness with those kind of things, I tend to do it in a very sarcastic way. But the trouble is, my humour is so dry, and I tend to kind of it sort of goes over some people's heads, you know. And also my humour can be a little dark sometimes, and so it doesn't always get picked up, I think, by some people. I've done some stuff in the past where it kind of people didn't really get it, and I was just like, yeah, this is kind of, it's gone past people, you know. But yeah, I mean, the other thing is in terms of trends, you know, just in terms of trends and picking certain games at certain times. And some people will play a game for the channel at a certain time just because they know it's like flavor of the month. It's like the hot topic, you know. And for example, No Man's Sky. Okay, everyone's playing No Man's Sky right now. Am I? No, because I don't like the look of it and I don't think it's interesting. Okay, it just doesn't appeal to me. I don't want to play it, right? But everybody else and his dog, even people that, you know, probably doesn't quite fit on their channel, they're more than happy to put it in there, you know. You know, it's just the way it goes. So, but you know, at the end of the day, if I wanted my channel to be much bigger and I wanted to focus on that, I could do that. If I wanted to just kind of throw ethics out the window and just say, do you know what, fuck it, I'm just going to be a sleazy, nasty, I'm just going to bang that crap out there and fuck my subscribers, you know, whatever, they can just suck it up. But, you know, I try not to. I try to focus on doing things that I want to do. And again, like I say, I don't want to be too critical of other people, but I just find that some of the content that I see on many other channels is very disingenuous, and yeah. But so I get what Bunny's saying there, and I think that many of the people that watch my channel kind of get that. You know, in fact, actually, I get a lot of comments from people saying that the reason they watch me is because they can't watch these other channels. So I guess we're kind of like the disenfranchised group or something like this. I don't know. So you're constantly trying to work out, like, how can I improve things? How can I make it better? But at the same time, not sacrificing the important core principles that I have, you know, about the channel. And basically what that comes down to is just honesty, not misleading people, and trying to make critical content. That's always really important to me. Being able to provide critical content and constructive critical content, not just ranting and raving about things, but also enabling to be positive at the same time. That's something which has been really difficult. But because, like I've said before, trying to be positive about things, people automatically just say, oh, you've been paid off. And you're like, okay, yeah, whatever, But hey, look, at the end of the day, I'm massively appreciative of my audience. And I know that most of you guys get it, okay? Even though in the comments sometimes people can be ranting and bitching at me, I know that the majority of people watching the videos get it, because on most of my videos, I would say like 99% of my videos, the like ratio far outweighs the dislike ratio. And by the way, as I've said many times before, the like and dislike really doesn't matter. YouTube just views that as interaction. If you have a video which has a ton of dislikes, doesn't matter. It literally doesn't matter. Everything helps you there. So yeah, but as I say, I know that most people watching get it, and most people who are watching want to watch the videos. That's why you guys keep coming back. And so, yeah, I'm very happy with where I am with YouTube, and I'm very hopeful still that things are going in the right direction in terms of me working full-time on things. We're on track there. Patreon has been going extremely well, guys. If you want to check out Patreon, the link is down below. But again, we're doing very, very well with Patreon. We're heading towards the halfway mark. I'm hoping that pretty soon we'll be able to pass that, and then we really are sort of heading in the right direction for me being able to work full-time. In terms of timescale for that, I'm kind of hoping that maybe in the new year, but we will see how it goes, but I massively appreciate everybody's support there, guys. But as always, tell me your thoughts down below about all the different topics we talked about here today. Below the Line is back. I'm going to try and continue on with this, and I apologize that it sort of had a little break, but I say the last month or so has been actually really, really busy for me in terms of just things going on, and there's been a lot of changeability things going on. I've also just been exhausted at the moment. I find it very hard to kind of turn content out at the moment because I've just been absolutely exhausted, and I'm trying to get on top of that a little bit, but you know how it goes. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and yeah, tell me your thoughts down below. See you next time for another Below the Line.